Because remember, we are both YouTubers now.
Well, I suppose we should do it, really. We should start. We should actually make a podcast.
What's a podcast?
What is a podcast? It's been a long time since we've recorded something, which is strange. Not even going to justify why. We just haven't.
No. What happened was we said some mean things about Amazon and we had to stop for a while. Just had to lay low, keep our heads below the... I can't remember if it's parapet or pulpit. One of those is part of a castle. One of those is part of a church. Don't know which one it's meant to be. This has got away from me.
I think a parapet is part of a castle and a pulpit is part of a church.
Well, either way, we've been keeping our heads below them.
Yep.
just waiting for it to all blow over. And now we're back.
As if that would be a thing, because we host our own podcast. Beholden to no one. It's not as if Linode is going to phone me and be like, yo, take that down.
So that was a very generous we. It's definitely a you. I still don't even know how websites work.
Websites, how do they work?
I know there are a lot of tubes.
It's
largely
tubes,
angled up.
Tubes and magic, and there's something about clouds and stuff like that, and I don't know. It's all someone else's computer. That's the thing.
I mean, it's better than it being mine, frankly.
Right, where are we going? As the audience may be able to tell from this rather rambly introduction, 1, we're out of practice, and 2, it is ludicrously hot at the moment. So enjoy slightly melted brains and the sound of fans. And
probably the sounds of outside as well, which I work so hard to keep out. Do you live under a flight path? That could be fun.
It's fine. We'll get over it.
Robo-Nerd's a thing that's happening.
Right, yeah, right. Let's get on to the main reason that we've decided to record today, despite the heat, is so Robo-Nerd is this weekend. This Saturday, is that right, at the time of recording, which is the 15th?
Well, the live stream is this Saturday. There is stuff going on for at least a week after. But the sort of main individual event to turn up to is this Saturday. Yeah, the whole thing starts this Saturday. Obviously, we would normally go to Wolverhampton, he says, with not enough confidence around this time of year. You're the one that's had to get us there every time. And go and have a nice time and see everyone and fight robots. But we can't do that at the moment, so it's all digital. I don't know why. Why am I explaining this? Yeah, why are you explaining the past 6 months, or however long this has been? People know how coronavirus works at this point. So yeah, it's happening. There's a live stream on Saturday, and then various other bits of stuff happening online for the following week. Ryan and I have made a thing for Robo-Nerd. The thing has been announced. You can give details of the thing. The thing has been announced. I have no idea what time the thing will be broadcast, but it's been done. So Ryan and I interviewed Dave Moulds of Team Carbine, and we had a lot of fun doing it. We've put together a nice interview that we're both pretty proud of, and you can watch it at some point on, I think, Saturday, but I'm not sure. Ryan will probably know more than me. I can't remember the schedule. I'm not sure I know the schedule. I'm sure we were told at some point. Key thing is, it's going to be on the live stream, and then after that, it will be living both on the live stream VOD on the Robo-Nerd channel, and also our own version on our own channel. It'll be there forever, for better or worse. It'll be there until YouTube goes away. Until the heat death of the universe. I suppose in the spirit of owning your own stuff, I should find a way to put that on our website that doesn't rely on YouTube. But that is work, so I'm not going to do it. Presumably that's expense as well. Potentially. If people download it a bunch of times, then yeah, it would become expense. Yeah, when all the hundreds of thousands sort of flock to the website at once to download it. Yeah. I think the trick here will be to let YouTube take the brunt of the traffic and then upload it quietly and not tell anyone. Except you've told people now. Well, but then, I could put it at in a secret location and then it'll be fine. It already is in a secret location on the website. I should delete that because it uses up almost all the storage that we have. There's less than a gigabyte of free space on the web server now because of that. Maybe we'll end up doing an audio-only version. Yeah, that seems most likely. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to just seeing what people make of that interview. It's a big departure for us. We've done, one interview ever? Yeah. It's something that, we haven't exactly sworn off of it, but it's not something that fits with how we usually work. And I think it's fair to say we were both a bit trepidatious
about doing an interview. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, like interviews they're hard. They're hard to do well, and they take a lot of preparation. And I don't know. I don't feel like Ryan and I are particularly good at it at the moment. I'm sure if we did it a lot, we'd get better.
We're not practiced, but I'm really pleased with what we've made.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where Si approached us to do it, and we both kind of went, oh, I'm not sure, let's see who it is. And as soon as that name came out, it was, we'll do that. We'll push through the discomfort of this, and we'll do that. We'll take that bullet.
Yeah, take one for the team.
Yeah, I think proper debrief next episode, because there's a lot from it to discuss, I think.
Yeah.
A lot of very interesting information.
But that will have to wait until after everyone has seen the interview.
In that case, do you have any more follow-up-y front mattery stuff?
I do. You've been making... But you've cheated on me, Ryan. You've gone and made content with other people. And I think you should tell people about it.
Yes. So...
You weren't expecting this.
I'm still not sure if you've watched it or not.
I started and didn't get very far.
I did tell you wouldn't enjoy it.
That is a function of who I am, not a commentary on the thing that you've made.
No More Spinners is not a series made for Sam. So yeah, this is something that ages ago now, we did a recording of Roasting Robots with Mike, and I had a game sort of in my back pocket ready to play in case he wanted to do a bit of bonus stuff. And we didn't, and that game has sat there for multiple years. Then the original version of it, because obviously it's something I've stolen, it's not an original idea at all. The original version of it was then purged from YouTube and has suddenly made a comeback under a new name, which was the perfect time to completely copy it and rip it off.
Yeah.
So yeah, No More Spinners, a little game series on YouTube, very casual, very easy recordings. It's just a stupid, fun thing that I'm really enjoying making.
Excellent.
It's really weird to record something where you'll just get a message on Discord going, you're free to record in about 5 minutes. You can go, yeah, I am. And I literally just get a box out, put my phone on top of it and a little clamp and record, which is not an experience I've had before. Normally there's preparation and stress and negotiation of content. And with this, it's just sit down, play game, which is a very nice thing to be able to do. And while it's the summer holidays and I've got nothing else to do, and it's the same for Jevon as well, we're just kind of banging a load together and we'll put them out whenever.
Whenever. Complete with completely pointless premieres on YouTube.
The premieres were not my choice, but I have been enjoying them. It's interesting to watch people play along.
Okay.
I think it is a series where premieres make slightly more sense. Not so much sense that I would have chosen it, but slightly more sense. So I'm on board.
You truly have become a YouTuber.
I know, right? I am the YouTuber now.
Yeah.
I'm going to completely change my look, style, everything, just to appeal to fans on YouTube more. I'm going to become highly fashionable now. I'm going to shout a lot more.
What's up, guys? It's your boy, Ryan Bratley. It's your boy, the Bratmeister.
It's funny because my screen name in a lot of places would actually be quite YouTube friendly. The old Bratman.
Yeah, sorry, Bratman. I should have gone with that. I'm sorry.
I mean, it's nice that you haven't been stalking me in too many places to remember that's a thing I sometimes use.
Yeah. Oh, blimey. It is entirely too hot to...
It really is.
To be doing enthusiastic YouTuber things.
Would you like to roll into some Retinity then?
Yes, let's do it. Let's pad this episode out.
Yeah, because that wasn't the padding.
Oh, I'm so unprepared. I haven't got to die. 1 sec.
Oh, for Pete's sake.
I'll be back in a sec. I'm leaving this in.
You have one job. 3 or 4 jobs, but specifically for this episode, in terms of things that are different, 1 job. Although I appreciate his commitment to the format in terms of not just using a random number generator online, which would have been functionally the same as actually going and getting the thing. Also, I know how large Sam's home is, and I don't understand how this has taken this long. Is he setting me up?
I'm back.
Could be.
Am I is who setting who up? What?
I was just a little confused by how long that had taken.
Well,
considering I know the distance you had to cover.
Ow, fuck!
What have you done?
Right, I'm recording in a different place. I was going to go in the record. I was hoping I could get away with not telling people this. Right, my flat is insanely hot, and the office where I normally record from is too hot, and it's got a big hot computer, and I can't be able to deal with it. So I'm in my bedroom which is why the dice were not to hand. The reason it took me so long to get them is because I went to get the dice and then went to go and get a flat surface in the form of a chopping board upon which to roll them. and then the large exclamation just then was me putting my very hot MacBook Pro on bare skin, and that was not fun. So,
a story told in many parts there.
I hope you all appreciate the physical pain that actually goes into making these podcasts. Okay, I'm ready.
Ready is a relative term, isn't it?
It's
at this point I realise that I haven't looked through these notes myself in a while. Only the ones that I did fresh yesterday.
It's aluminium laptops, man. They look... Sorry, I'm still burning myself.
I think you mean aluminum.
Aluminum laptops, they look very pretty, but they are impractical. Especially when you put them crappy thermal solutions in them. Anyway, sorry, Lylan, I'm ready. I'm prepared. I will stop complaining about Apple's engineering prowess.
Starting off then, we have PP3D versus Nuts 2.
Yeah.
Immediately, we have a slight decision to make in terms of PP3D. Where last time we met them, we didn't really do any versioning. My assumption is that's because the two versions were similar enough. But I just wanted to check whether you want to combine or separate.
I don't care. No. Yeah, I think we combined them in the past. We've been doing a lot of combining recently, so I'm happy to just combine.
I've honestly forgotten all of the precedents that we set in the last round of these.
I think in the last round, we got fed up of trying to keep track of which version we were using and just started combining stuff. And if that wasn't the case last time, it's definitely the case this time.
Sounds good to me. I know which one I want to win. I know which one we probably should win. Or actually, no, do I know that? How are you feeling about this one?
I'm shocked at Nuts 2's win record.
Nuts 2 was very successful.
Very successful robot. And I sort of like, we watched that. We've discussed this kind of stuff in the past. But I'm still surprised when you see a ostensibly joke robot that is highly successful.
I guess the caveat that comes with that is that there were some... circumstantial wins probably isn't the right way to say it, but definitely some opponents that they were suited to beating. We said this time and time again, I'm sure, but put Nuts 2 up against a wedge flipper, and it's got almost nothing offensively. Whereas with Androne and Concussion and Carbide, they always had key bits, key weak spots that Nuts was able to exploit. So it's a question of whether we think PP3D has those weak spots.
There's nothing that obviously stands out, which isn't to say they're not there, just that they don't obviously stand out.
There's a lot of exposed wheel, so I wonder what Nuts can potentially do to that. I wouldn't previously have expected Nuts to do a great deal to wheels until they did exactly that to Concussion. I don't know if that was a specific way that Concussion were doing their wheels that wouldn't apply here.
It's really funny, I keep underestimating that. So I thought, what can those flails possibly do? But they are heavy and they are moving fast. So yeah, they could do a number on the wheels, I guess. I guess the other thing to consider is how much can PP3 do in return? Can that undercutter hit anything significant on Nuts 2? And I don't know, maybe it can do a number on Nuts' wheels.
Does it have the reach to get all the way under the outer ring?
But it might not, yeah. It might not have that kind of reach.
Especially when Nuts is spinning, because at that point, it's really the major radius, as it were, of that ring, which is going to be the critical thing. So yes, there are short spots. There are also long bits, which are going to be keeping PP3D at bay while they're spinning.
Yeah. I think this would be a really interesting fight. I genuinely have no idea what would happen.
I wouldn't be averse to seeing it actually happen.
Yeah, I think it could either be really interesting or it could, in fairness, be incredibly boring.
I don't think a fight with Nuts 2 while it's working can be boring. Unless the other robot is actively running away, which, let's face it, is not what PP3D is going to do. PP3D has kind of struggled against robots that it can't do significant damage to. There's always been a limit to the number of hits they can land before breaking. But Nuts 2 isn't the kind of robot you would expect to break them in that way.
Yeah, I think the issue is not necessarily that Nuts can take hits for longer than PP3D can deliver them. I just don't think PP3D can really hit Nuts in a significant way.
But any damage to a wheel on Nuts has to mess up the whole translating system.
Yeah, right. Here's what I'm thinking right now. I think the most likely thing is that this would go to a judge's decision.
Bold.
Yeah, well, maybe it's the heat talking, but that is what I currently think.
See, I don't expect PP3D to run for 3 minutes without incident. That's the problem.
Oh, brutal.
But again, that's based on them hitting fairly solid objects, which Nuts 2 kind of isn't. This is a really interesting fight in a way that isn't all that interesting to talk about.
Yeah, there's lots at
It's
play.
the opposite of what we need.
Yeah.
I think it's a 4-3, I just don't know which way. I'm not sure it matters which way. I'm not sure you can decide which way. I know which way I'll go. But...
I think we should... I'm inclined, despite my initial thought, I'm inclined to give it in favour of Nuts 2, simply because I think they're more likely to win a judge's decision, and if you're having doubts about how long PP3D can last for, there's also the possibility of Nuts winning by default.
See, I think Nuts is the one with the greater chance of causing damage to the other, but I think in a judge's decision, Nuts 2 is very unlikely to win.
Really?
Because it doesn't show... I mean, it almost shows no aggression in the eyes of Robot Wars judges.
Those damn judges. I don't know. I guess my thought in my head, my assumption is that Nuts lands a few hits on the wheels and, like, even if it doesn't, like, tear the wheels off or anything, does do, like, visible damage to it, which I think is more than we could necessarily say for PP3D.
Yeah, I think the likelihood of them doing some damage to the drive is the thing that makes them a reasonable choice, at least. So I'm going to say 4-3 Nuts.
I think we agree, but not necessarily for the same reasons.
So 1, 2, 3 for PP3D, 4, 5, 6, 7 for Nuts 2.
I can move the microphone to do some better Foley now. It's a 3.
Well, damn it. Our choice mattered.
Our choice...
No, our choice didn't matter.
Well,
my choice to put PP3D first mattered.
That mattered. But
that is kind of what was already written down. So
consistent. That's a consistent decision. Yeah, well, I don't know. What happened then? No aggression to Nuts? Is that what we're going to go with?
The win condition for PP3D is that it does manage to get a hit in on a Nuts 2 wheel. And who knows what kind of issues that's going to cause for the Melty setup.
Yeah, that is very reasonable.
And if it does go to the judges, they will probably have shown more aggression. They will probably have shown more control as well.
Cool.
I'm disappointed, not out of any kind of dislike for PP3D, but just out of the hope that Nuts 2 was going to go further and get some really weird matchups.
Yeah, but, you know, Nuts 2 beat Ice Wave, so...
True.
On the worst possible odds, so it had some good fortune, at least.
Still sad.
Yeah.
But that's the way it is. Robots we like aren't always going to be the ones that go through.
We've written the rules to a competition that makes us both sad sometimes.
I mean, I don't think we could have written them in a way that would make us happy.
Ah, dear. Right then, up next we have the Four Horsemen versus Sharkoprian.
Was that a pause of not quite knowing how to say it?
That was a pause of many things. That was a pause of not. That was partly a dramatic pause, partly not quite sure how to pronounce Sharkoprian, and partly that my brain was just somewhere else for a moment.
So it's the Almost Four Horsemen versus the Irish entry, Sharkoprian.
Sharkoprian.
That's tickled you more than it deserved to.
Oh yeah, far more than it deserves to.
Now's probably a good time to remind ourselves that we are talking 2018 here, because we started this a long time ago. So we have performances from both of them from 2019 that we can't pay any attention to.
Oh God, I'm going to have a hard time with that, I think.
And the funny thing is, it kind of hurts both of them, I think.
Yeah.
Do you know what? It hurts the Four Horsemen more. It hurts them way more. Or does it? Maybe not. Which version did I prefer? I don't know. You know, the almost all spinner Four Horsemen setup, I think, is the prime Four Horsemen setup.
Now, is the Four Horsemen the one with the weird paddly thing, or is that a different of these?
That was the 2019 version.
2019, oh my.
And also the Robot Wars version. But
so no paddly thing. What have they got with the Fourish Horsemen then?
So in this incarnation, they have the 3 spinners and the wedge.
Okay, and it's just a question of, what is it? What do they have any choice about what they put in, or have they only got the weight for 2 spinners and a wedge?
Yes.
Well, because have they got the weight to put all 4 robots in? I can't remember. I feel like they don't.
Of course not.
No, because
the 4 horsemen. Why would they put all 4 in?
Crazy talk. Right, okay, so they can only put 3 in, and my assumption is that they don't have the weight to put. Can they put all 3 spinners in?
If they can, I don't believe they ever did.
Well, I'm going to assume they can't, and just assume that it's 2 spinners and a wedge.
But which 2 spinners, Sam? That's the important question here.
The red one and the black one.
A fine choice.
And because that's a cool colour combination.
It really is. Part of me says that Sharkoprian's drive is exposed enough for even those smaller spinners to score a KO. The other part of me says that Sharkoprian is so unpredictable that I wouldn't back them to get to those wheels at any point.
I feel like I often underrate the 4 horsemen. Like, I'm not big fans of this robot. Blimey. English.
Plurals are hard in this situation.
I'm not necessarily a big fan of this robot, so I'm not sure if I'm underrating them. But like, I think it's a good point, though. I think that they probably could hit the wheels of Sharko and do some actual damage. So yeah, maybe that's it.
But Sharkoprian's a nippy machine. It would struggle to get the weapon into play.
Yeah. And
it's a nippy, manoeuvrable, agile thing, especially for its length.
And Sharkoprian's also got does have cages around those wheels, so I think it would take more than one hit in that general area to do some damage that matters.
This is true.
You know, if they were completely exposed, I could see that it's almost inevitable, really, that one of the 4-ish horsemen would get a blow on a completely exposed wheel, but I don't know, this would require a couple of hits in the same place, at least.
The thing that's stopping me from putting this quite strongly in Sharkoprian's favour is just the knowledge of how difficult it would be to actually get their weapon involved.
Yeah.
Which, from a judging perspective, leaves them needing a KO, which they're going to struggle to get because they'll struggle to get their weapon involved.
This would be quite a boring fight, I think, wouldn't it?
I think there'd be a lot happening.
Yeah, there'd be a lot of things moving, but I don't think there'd be much in the way of interesting fighting. Yeah, I don't think Sharkoprian's got a way to knock the 4 horsemen out. Whereas I do think the 4 horsemen have a way to knock Sharkoprian out. And I agree with you on the judging as well, where I think once it goes to the judges, I think Sharkoprian has a harder time winning that. And so I'm almost inclined to give the advantage to the 4 horsemen here.
Thing is, it wouldn't take repeated hits from the Sharkoprian weapon to take out the individual pieces of the 4 horsemen. I don't see all 3 parts of the 4 horsemen surviving to a judge's decision, which means that Sharkoprian is going to score well on damage. It's everything else that might be tricky.
I don't know. What we need is I want like a picture. I want a picture of these 2 robots next to each other so we get a sense of height and how high that disc is on the front of Sharkoprian as compared to the height of the chassis on the 4 horsemen.
Oh, it'd be low enough to hit. It's just the fact that only the tooth is really exposed as it comes around.
But like, is the tooth exposed below the nose of the shark?
It appears as though it would be from the image I'm looking at. The position of that disc still bothers me. Just like visually, it seems weird. But I guess it's a pragmatic thing.
Yeah.
Make the thing fit in the part.
I don't know where else they could put it, really.
Let's make a decision on numbers here.
I wonder if a better approach for Sharkoprian would have been to do a hammerhead shark than have the hammerhead be the bit that spins horizontally.
That would be neat.
Some numbers. I still feel like I do actually want to give it in favour of the 4 horsemen.
Sentences I never thought I'd hear.
Yeah. Sentences you never thought you'd hear. Sam's recording with a handheld microphone. Sam wants the 4 horsemen to win.
What numbers are you suggesting?
I think it's a slight edge. So, like 4 and 3.
Let's do it. 1, 2, 3, 4 for the horsemen. 5, 6, 7 for Sharkoprian. And I'm okay with whoever wins.
You say that now. It's a 4.
Once again, the decision mattered.
The decision mattered. Well, there we go. 4 horsemen go through. Congratulations.
We don't really need to play the howl game on that one, do we? We've kind of...
I think we've covered it. I like the idea of the 4 horsemen taking out the drive.
It's great how we say that. It's like one of the most basic forms of KO. Yes, I like the idea of damaging the drive.
Look, it's really hot. This is all I'm doing the best I can.
Maybe you need to get your fan running a little faster. Put it into some form of overdrive. It'd be a beast then.
On the one hand, I'm disappointed, but I'm also impressed that you managed to work both of those in.
I mean, it wasn't that tough.
Nevertheless.
It was more a question of abandoning all sense of shame in order to do it. Overdrive versus Beast. Woo.
Woo!
A thrilling fight between 2 robots that everyone remembers.
Right then, Overdrive. Yes, with the slanted wheels. Beast, which I recall being dramatically underweight.
Was it? Or are you thinking of the Russian robot from the International Special that looked very similar?
If that's what you think I'm thinking of, then that's probably what I'm thinking of.
Beast may have been slightly underweight because it had been running on the live scene, so they may have just kept it at the old weight. But the Russian one, which I really wish I could remember the name of, because I'm always forgetting the names of their robots, was drastically underweight.
That's probably the one I was thinking of then. How does this retrospective count out happen?
Oh, do you not remember that whole mess?
No, I've forgotten.
I think that fight is the reason that a lot of people really struggled to like Gabriel. Where they basically decided to stop attacking Beast, thinking they should be counted out. Beast was kind of going around on one wheel, not really leaving its circumference, but didn't get counted out.
Yeah.
And then after the fight, there was some general upheaval about the fight. I can't remember the full circumstances. And it was decided that it should be counted as a knockout rather than a judge's decision, because they should have been counted out in the fight.
Well, drama relived. Yes, we are in the BattleBots arena, is where you were going before I interrupted.
How dare you?
I know, now I've committed myself to leaving that in there. Even record from Overdrive as well.
Bear in mind, it came up against original Chomp, sort of grabber disguised as a crusher.
Okay.
Chomp.
Not even the Chomp that I have in my dreams. You know what? I've got nothing. I don't know what to say.
I have it in my notes that it beat Push to Exit, and also Hobgoblin, at odds of 5-2. Is that me messing up my notes, or did we actually give this 5-2 over another robot? Another robot that exists? Because I'm surprised by that choice.
I have no idea, man. That does seem a little odd. Would we have underrated Push to Exit that much?
I mean, Push to Exit never got to do a great deal. It never really showed what it had. But I would be surprised if we'd been that harsh. Unless we had some really, really compelling reason that's beyond our current brain power.
Beyond our current recollection. Weird. I wouldn't give it those odds now. I think this is probably a bit closer than that.
So being in the BattleBots arena, in theory, disadvantages both of them. But I think it disadvantages Overdrive more, because Beast does at least have the opportunity, the possibility of an out of the arena.
Yeah.
I don't think Overdrive is fully invertible either. I think it's partially invertible, which means once it is flipped, it's just going to struggle more and more.
Do you think that it would be more invertible if the wheels were not at an angle? Because it would have more clearance on both sides.
I don't know if it would be more invertible enough, but yeah, it would be. It would be able to have a taller body for the same wheel diameter and remain invertible.
Yeah, I kind of want to give it in favour of Beast, just because, I think it can do more.
I don't want it to be a 6-1. But I think it might be a 6-1.
A 6-1? You feel that strongly about Overdrive?
I don't see what Overdrive does to win this fight.
No, I can't think of anything.
Again, I don't want to be sit here giving Beast that kind of advantage, but I don't see an alternative.
Beast is just going to keep going on amazingly good odds for the robot that it is.
I'm going to had Predator last time and got a 5-1 out of it, which I don't disagree with.
Fine, let's do a 6-1 this time then.
So 1 for Overdrive, everything else for Beast. It's a 4, isn't it?
No, it's a 5. Your streak of guessing the number has come to an end. You are no longer Ryan Darren Brown Bratley.
That's my name, don't wear it out. At least the next 2 robots are robots that people are going to remember. And they're colour coordinated.
So, up next, and probably our final round for the day, is Minotaur versus Brutus.
Hope you like black and gold.
It's another good colour scheme.
Hope you like guns.
That's less of a good colour scheme.
Now, I have a note down for Minotaur, saying that we didn't discuss the versioning, so the most recent will be used. I don't really see the need to sort of differentiate between versions at all, really.
Stop bringing up versioning.
Hang on. It. Also, you know, the other would have been 2019, which we can't use anyway, so...
Well, there we go.
I'm just going to get rid of that whole segment. Actually, hang on, what? Oh, yeah, it is 2018 that it was running out. Yeah, it was out at a semi-final before that. I know BattleBots. I know all of the bot battles.
I'm so proud. Right, so, Minotaur, really good win record. I think that's probably going to be the favourite here. Brutus, what's it going to do? It's like a less good Minotaur.
It has what seems to be quite a sturdy wedge, especially in its second incarnation, the gunless incarnation.
Yeah.
But the odds of it actually getting its weapon into play in this fight are far slimmer than they should be because of that setup. They've got the sort of bombshell level wedge where you've got to get a robot up almost on top of you to start getting your weapon in play.
Yeah.
And I don't see that being a good choice here. Up against a horizontal, great. Up against a vert with forks, less useful.
Yeah, I think the Minotaur will tear up the front of that wedge, and it'll get increasingly less likely to ride up it over the course of the fight. So I think Brutus will have like a small number of opportunities at the beginning of the fight to get a hit in, but after that, don't think it would get very much.
The weapon has always seemed to have sufficient power that if they did get around the side, you feel like they would be able to do a chunk of damage. But considering the absolute beating we've seen Minotaur take and keep running from Tombstone, a couple of hits on the side, however good they are, don't seem like that big a deal. If they're Blight Force level hits, they're a big deal.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, like you say, Minotaur's taken a beating on the sides before and been fine. Maybe not been fine, but like has survived it.
Well, that's fair. It's also taken a small hit on the side and ended up beached on that small bit of damage.
That was unfortunate, though. I don't think that's a particularly big consideration when deciding the odds here.
Is it enough to make it a 5-2 instead of a 6-1, though?
I mean, that's happened once in however many fights Minotaur has had.
Well, it's happened once in all the fights it's had, many of which weren't against verts.
And like, I forget the circumstances under which it got beached, but was that against Tombstone that happened?
That's a different fight. So you had the Bombshell semi-final in the second ABC season, where Bombshell ran the vert, hit them on the side, and it kind of peeled up enough of their top plate, I think it was, that when they then got flipped later on in the fight, the drive on that side didn't contact the ground.
I see.
The Tombstone one was then being beached on a bit of floor that had been ripped up.
I don't know. Is Brutus going to get that hit to peel it up? Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
But is that enough of a consideration to give them an extra point of odds? I feel like probably not.
It's a tough sell, I think.
When you think of the quality of vert that Minotaur has already dealt with, Lockjaw, Witch Doctor, Monsoon.
This is just Minotaur's fight, really, isn't it?
Yeah. And while we can try and justify this being more of a conversation, I think we've reached a conclusion, haven't we?
I think we've reached a conclusion. I think we know what we're about to do here.
So it's a 4-3 to Minotaur.
Oh, dear. Do you want to spell it out? Or shall I just roll?
Minotaur.
Excellent. Right. Are you still there?
I'm still here. I was just waiting for the laughter to die down.
Sorry. I've rolled a 6.
That's okay then. Minotaur goes through.
We're safe.
And no controversy was had. Excellent.
Excellent.
Sometimes we thrive on the upsets. Today was not one of those days.
No. Sometimes we can record for more than an hour.
Yeah, we haven't even been going an hour and we're already sick of this.
If it wasn't this hot, I'd happily carry on. But it is so hot.
I'm saying it now, and this is probably something that's going to want to stay in. I will be stunned if there are not issues with my audio. I always use a wireless mouse anyway, but I cannot touch the mouse pad on my laptop right now. It is, like, borderline painful to touch. And that's how it's been for the last 3 days.
So I've, like, given up on my flat. I've started going down to my parents' house to work because...
Oh, wow.
Because I can't... You just can't stay in this flat. Honestly, like, it must get above 30 in here, in the flat. And there's just sod all we can do about it. Like, you open the windows and the air temperature outside is 30. So, like, you can't cool it down. And, like, in the living room, we've got this huge French doors or whatever, despite being on an upper floor. So there's just this huge window in the living room with the sunlight just coming through for, it must be like 6 hours straight of just direct sunlight. So hot.
I know this is like a rant that is not original, but I really don't think people in other hotter countries understand how bad our buildings are at dealing with heat. Our buildings are designed to keep heat in. That has been the need for British buildings. That has been, like, one of the design goals. And now it is true that a building that keeps heat in theory, is also good at keeping it out. And there are people who are able to do that really well.
I mean, it can keep heat out, like, in terms of it will, like, if you've got good insulation, it will prevent the heat coming through the roof tiles and into your house that way. But, like, good insulation isn't going to solve the fact that we've got direct sunlight for 6 hours coming into the room. You know, you can close curtains and stuff, but that's a huge source of heat coming in as well. Plus, you know, people heat up houses surprising amount just living in them. But the other thing that people, I'm going to keep going with things that people might not realise about the UK. Houses don't have air conditioning in the UK for a number of reasons. A lot of houses were built before air conditioning was a thing. But even in modern houses that have been built this year, they still don't have air conditioning because for some reason there's a cultural thing against it. People are, it doesn't get that hot in the UK, and it does. And every year it gets hotter. But yeah, there's just like not air conditioning outside of commercial buildings. So like in hotter countries, it's like you go inside, you turn your air conditioning on and you're fine. But in the UK, you go inside and it's just as hot and humid as it was outside and you can't escape it. And I can't even go shopping at the moment to go and enjoy the air conditioning in Sainsbury's or something. It's a nightmare.
Which is how we usually deal with the heat. We usually like take our computers into the nearest supermarket, just set up there.
No, but like you could like, you know, go and have a little wander around, mooch around Sainsbury's for a bit to cool off. Or Tesco's, or wherever you do your shopping. Waitrose for all I know, if you want to be fancy about it.
No, we're sponsored by Sainsbury's.
No. Oh, does that mean we can't say bad things about Sainsbury's?
I mean, why would you? They're an excellent supermarket.
We got some mouldy chilies delivered from them the other day, so...
A fermented product at no extra cost.
Perfect.
People pay extra to do that to cheese.
Yeah, I can't argue with you there.
I would like to know how a chili goes mouldy, though. That's got to take a long time.
I don't know what happened, man, but yeah, it was not fun when we opened that.
Were they mouldy externally or just internally?
I think that basically probably what happened is that they were that particular packet got crushed under something, so it was like a lot of like juices in there, and then that would allow the whatever mold to grow a lot quicker. But it was like squishy, juicy, slimy horribleness in that bag.
Nice. There's an episode title. Squishy, juicy, slimy horribleness.
We've got it. We've got everything we need for an episode. We've got a cold open, a title, and some content.
That, by the way, has been my favourite thing about No More Spinners so far. The fact that, without any discussion, we adopted Spinnerproof titling.
Yes! It's the best way to title things.
It's a complete rip-off of an existing series, right down to the graphics. But we changed that one thing. And there was never a conversation about it. It was just done.
That's the way to do it.
Having called back to the opening, do you want to after show?
Yeah, shall I do an outro and then we can talk about...
Oh yeah,
something
those are a thing that we do.
Afterward, yeah, we've got an outro to do as well. That's the one remaining bit of the format we need to do.
Go on then.
You can find the show notes for this episode at spinnerproof.com/episodes/78. And there you can find links to all the stuff we've been talking about today. You can also find a link to our Twitter at Spinnerproof, where you can tweet to us a photo of the air conditioning unit that you almost certainly have.
Appealing to the Americans.
Assuming that, yeah. I'm assuming most of our audience is American, but I'm not sure that's true, actually. I think it's a fairly even split between the UK and the US.
I mean, the guy who was worried that he got banned from the subreddit was Dutch. That was so funny. I did reassure him that it wasn't just him.
In case anyone else comes across it, we do have a Spinnerproof subreddit, which we sat on, like, within, like, 3 or 4 episodes of making Spinnerproof. We just got it just in case. And it's private, and we don't really do anything with it. So if you do come across it and think you're banned, you're not. We sat on the name and then haven't done anything with it.
I don't know if you visited it recently, but there is only one post there, and it's me taking the piss out of you for not liking jellyfish.
God damn it, of course it is.
I'm almost through one of my bottles of water.
Right, shall we after show them?
Mm-hmm. With a great deal of trepidation.
Right, so a little while ago, a few weeks ago at this point, I was enjoying a one-day build from Adam Savage on Tested, and as you do, occasionally do a bit of cyber stalking, and I was looking down Adam's Wikipedia page, and it made reference to an allegation from his sister about, saying that Adam raped her when they were children, which was very upsetting to read about. And I read that, was sad for a while, was like, I'm not sure if I can watch this anymore, if this is true. Watched a few more, felt a bit weird about it, done some more thinking, and my conclusion is that I'm going to no longer watch anything from Adam Savage. And I've unfollowed and unsubscribed and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I was wondering, we could wondering if we could talk through the reasons why. See if you have any differing thoughts on this. I don't know if you have any opening statements on the matter.
I think if we're looking for an opening statement, this has been a very interesting case study in the way I respond to news. In that I first saw this when it was news, and there was a little bit of coverage of it, and my instinct was, that can't be true because I like him. And I've done quite a lot of thinking about that instinctive response.
Yeah.
And I think that, for me, is going to be my contribution to this conversation, if that makes sense. It's more about the way I respond to hearing about something like that.
Yeah. So, like, when I read it, I had a similar sort of, like, journey there of I don't want this to be true, and I still don't want it to be true. Because I did really enjoy watching those. So yeah, my initial reaction was like, that can't be right. And you think about who Adam Savage is today, and you think, how could this be true? But we've had this in the past with other public figures who do a lot for a community, and you think, how can they possibly do that and also have done this other horrific thing? But yeah, my sort of like, I'm just going to talk for a while, and you can interrupt me if you want to interject at any point. But so my thinking for this is, so the events that what's his sister's name? Miranda, I believe. The events that are described happened when they were children, so like between like 7 and 10 or something. So quite young, and young enough that you sort of think, in this situation, I think this is the fault of the parents more than the people. Miranda says that that Adam was referring to himself as the raping blob as he did it, which suggests, and again, if that's true, that suggests that Adam had some knowledge of what he was doing, and that it was probably not the right thing to be doing, which makes it a bit muddier. But in any case, I think young enough that you sort of go, this is probably the parents' fault more than it is Adam's. So that's sort of part of it. And then the other part of it for me is I'm sort of thinking, do I want to forever condemn someone for their actions as a child? I pretty firmly and fundamentally believe that people are redeemable. I don't think that you can write someone off forever outside of very extreme situations. And and it may be that for you this situation is extreme enough, and that's fine. And maybe it should be for me as well. But I think that people are redeemable, and I don't think we should immediately write someone off because of their actions as a child. And I also generally feel that people are innocent until proven guilty, which leads us to sort of our first problem here, which is that these are events that happened nearly 50 years ago, however long ago, a long time ago. What evidence could you bring to anything to prove anything about guilt here? Which means that I think in the eyes of the law, Adam is and will forever be innocent. I think so. Like, the problem with this situation is, if you go, if someone's innocent until they're proven guilty, you've got to just decide, do you believe the accuser or not? And I don't know, there are some accommodations for that kind of stuff in law, like you have a jury and all that kind of stuff, but at a certain point you've just got to say there's not enough evidence to do anything here, and we can't convict on the words of a small number of people in every case. And again, maybe that's a problem in itself, I don't know, but like, I think as far as the law is concerned, at some point you just got to go, too long has passed, we're never going to get any evidence about this, we've got to close the case and just say, you know, that's it, it's done, and close the book on it. But like, the legal system is not and should not be a guide for morality. And so I think while it's easy to sort of like, what I wanted to be able to do when I was thinking this through, what I wanted to do was go, well, he's innocent until proven guilty, the law has and will probably find him innocent, and therefore it's fine. But that's not a good excuse, that's not a good line of thinking, I don't think. So that was it. And then the other thing I've touched on is like condemning someone for their actions as a child, and I think that's valid, but not necessarily applicable in this case, because if you believe Miranda, the logical consequence of this is that Adam is a liar and a hypocrite, because he's saying, he's outright denying it, and also claiming that Miranda has like mental health issues. Like, you know, to put it really bluntly, he's trying to say that she's crazy. And where am I going with this? Oh, I've lost the train of thought. That's so annoying. Yeah, right. So the logical consequence of believing Miranda is that Adam is lying and hiding it, and like I said, is a hypocrite, because he's quite an outspoken feminist in this kind of situation. Is sort of like, you know, you should believe people and stuff, and then he's in this situation himself and not acknowledging it, not admitting to it. If it happened, I don't know. Maybe Adam is telling the truth and it didn't happen. We don't know. But that's the logical consequence. That's the logical consequence of believing Miranda. And then the alternative is to not believe Miranda. And then Adam's in the clear, but you've got to justify why you don't believe her. And in this specific situation, it may be that you could come up with some justification for disbelieving it. But like in the general case, do you just disbelieve every time? I don't know. Like, I don't think you can do that. I think you've got to believe the person. I think that's the safer, more reasonable thing to do, is to believe the victim here. And I can't think of a good reason not to believe her. Like, you've got Adam and their mum saying that she has mental health issues, but they're not reliable sources of information in this situation. I can't take Adam at his word for this. Of course, he's going to do everything he can to try and protect his career and his public image and stuff. He's like, I can't rely on him, and I can't rely on their mother either, because we don't know anything about them. Like, Adam has kept his private life very private in general. Like, you think about how much we know about Adam as a person outside of what he portrays on Tested and Mythbusters and stuff, and it's like, it's not a lot. Like, I don't even know the name of his kids, despite the fact that he talks about them from time to time. Like, as far as I'm concerned, they're called Thing 1 and Thing 2. And I'm sure if you do some digging, you can find out what they're called, but I think it's generally not public knowledge, and I think that's true of a lot of Adam's life. And so I don't know anything about his parents, and for all I know, Adam has narcissistic parents, and Adam's the golden child, and so of course they're going to side with Adam. I genuinely have no idea, and so I don't think you can use either of them as a reliable source of whether or not to believe Miranda. And so because I can't justify saying I don't believe her, which means I have to believe her, which means that Adam is a liar and a hypocrite, which means I don't feel like I can watch his stuff anymore. And that's where I find myself. That was a bit of a rambly journey, but that's where I am. That's sort of where I found myself. There's lots of ways I can try and justify. I want to, because I want to keep watching the videos, man. Like, I really do enjoy them. And so like all these sort of conversations in my own head, trying to sort of like, is there a way to continue enjoying them? And I just don't think there is for me. So yeah, that's the journey I've been on.
It was interesting listening to that, because I think we've got a very similar set of inputs in terms of the way we think about this. You know, similar sort of concerns, similar trains of thought, but very different outputs in terms of action. So what I think you were saying there, maybe this is me interpreting it how I want to interpret it, is that we've got, or I know I've got, it sounds like you've got a completely contradictory set of wants in terms of how to address and think about something like this. Which is that you want to maintain the idea that someone is innocent until it's proven otherwise, but you also want to live in a world where people can come forward about these things and not immediately be faced with doubt and suspicion. And those two things cannot go together. It is They are completely mutually exclusive, as far as I can see, which is a horrible situation, because you don't want that to be true, but it is. The only way, I think, to do that, to achieve that, is for something like this to not be public knowledge, which has its own inherent set of problems that I couldn't even begin to get into. So I think my main overriding feeling for myself is that I'm sad I had to know about this. I'm sad that I've been faced, and sad that we've been faced, with having to make decisions on this, with no information whatsoever. Absolutely no information. And what I've tried to do is make no decision, but as you say, that is not possible either. Whatever you do, you are choosing to believe someone and not the other, or worse, you're choosing not to care. So I don't think it's possible to reach the right answer. You just reach the answer you're marginally more comfortable with.
It's interesting because I don't think it's a marginal thing for me. I'm comfortable with my decision. I'm very sad about it. Like you say, I'm sad that I know this, and I'm sad that this is a decision that I feel like I've had to make with not enough information, because we don't know what happened, and I think ultimately we can't know. And I can sort of like think through and go my own experiences of childhood and growing up with a sister and stuff. You think, is it conceivable that happened? Maybe that would be a pretty weird childhood, but equally, children are monsters. So it's sort of a believable thing that what has been described as a thing that happened. I think that's believable. I think it's very believable that that the family would sort of be like, try and sort of keep it hush hush, even without any sort of public. Because at that point, I guess none of the savages were particularly well known. So, but even just even just in that situation, you sort of be like, you might not want to make a big deal out of it. And what Miranda describes as being where her family didn't disbelieve her. So like they believed her, but didn't really do anything about it. And I can totally believe that happening. I can totally believe someone covering that up afterwards once they sort of are prominent to be like to cover that up. I can totally see that happening. And people are hypocrites and all the time, and double think and do all kinds of weird stuff to justify it in their own heads all the time. I don't think it's necessarily fair to attribute malice to anyone in particular here about the situation, but people will do stuff to protect themselves. So that the whole situation, the whole sort of sequence of events is believable, even though we don't have the information, even though we don't know if it happened or not. And I think fundamentally we can't know. It was so long ago. Because it's all believable, and because I haven't got a good reason not to believe Miranda, yeah, it's sort of just it's a logical consequence about morality for me. And I don't know, like I try to stand by my values and try to do the thing that I think is right. And I think the right thing to do in this situation is to disengage from Adam's work, and that makes me sad in like a selfish kind of a way. But it's not a marginal decision. I think in the end, I think it's a very sort of like clear chain of logic and reasoning that's kind of like this is the only choice you have, and you're going to be sad about it, but this is the only thing you can really do and still feel good about yourself. For me. But I can also see that other people bring different experiences to the situation, and because there's so little information, you might make different assumptions to what I've made, and then follow a similar, fairly rigorous chain of logic, and arrive at a different conclusion. I don't know. It's hard to know. But like I feel that in this situation, you've just got to err in favour of the victims in these situations, because if you just go, oh, they've got to prove it. There's so many times where you can imagine this is just not fundamentally not provable.
But the opposite is also true. It's not disprovable. You're asking the accused person to prove a negative.
Well, the thing is, I'm in some ways well, yeah, I guess I am, but I'm also like, this is the thing. This is the difference between a court of law and your own moral compass, right? So I agree that in the case, and I think this is why the law works the way that it does, is that you've got to be able to be rigorous and logical about it in an ideal. I fully acknowledge that this is not how legal systems work in practice in the real world, but in an ideal legal system, then yeah, you've got to have, the idea of innocent until proven guilty makes sense, because you've got to prove a positive, and that's something that you can do. But for this kind of thing where there isn't enough information to make an absolute claim about facts, we haven't got that, and we're also not, Spinnerproof is not a court of law here. And this is a moral judgment. It's like, am I comfortable watching these videos of a man who, by my own moral compass, is or would appear to be a liar and a hypocrite? And I think the answer to that is no. I'm not comfortable watching those videos, and I wouldn't, like I said, I wouldn't condemn the guy on this. I wouldn't say, and now Adam must be arrested. I'm not going to go that far, because I don't think there's enough. You haven't got enough cause to do that. But for me, disengaging from the stuff that he produces, I think, is a reasonable response.
Cards on the table, and I hope you don't mind me saying this, I quite strongly disagree with you.
Okay.
But from a different angle, if that makes sense. It's like in terms of you making your own moral judgment, absolutely no criticism. You do what you're comfortable with. The problem I have with it is that you are, by doing that, contributing to a world in which an allegation of something, whether true or not, can end someone.
Just to defend myself quickly on this, I am aware of this cancel culture stuff, and I think that I agree that is a problem. I think that a simple allegation shouldn't be enough to completely end someone. This is something I have thought about. I have genuinely spent some time thinking, have I got a good enough reason not to believe her in this situation? Have I got a good enough reason not to believe Miranda? Because that's what it takes. In order to continue enjoying the stuff that Adam makes, I have to decide I don't believe you to Miranda, and I don't think I've got a good enough reason to do that. And I think the problem that I have here is that the default of society seems to be, I don't believe you in these situations. We've got it's such a societal problem with exactly this kind of issue, where the victim is just not believed by anyone, and that's a big problem. And so I think that I have to err on the side of believing them, which means I have to justify not believing her, and I don't think I can do that. I didn't immediately stop watching this stuff. I didn't immediately go, oh, that allegation, and therefore I'm going to completely disengage. So it's a decision that I haven't taken lightly, if that makes sense. Like I've made a decision knowing the consequences, and I've done it after careful thought.
And as I said earlier, I don't think it's a decision that you can get right. This isn't something where you can work through a set of logic and come to the objectively correct answer. That's not a thing here. It's about doing what you're comfortable with. And I guess the thing that bothers me about my own response is that I know how badly weighted the factors are in my mind. This is a person who I like, and therefore my instinctive reaction, as I think I said earlier, was, can't be true. And of course, through conversations we've had, and just through my own thinking about it, I've fought against that initial instinct. I think that's the absolute bare minimum that we owe the world, is to fight our initial instincts on anything like this. But I've still fallen back on that side. And what really worries me is that I think if I'd started from the opposite position, if this was, I can't think of an example, and that's probably a good thing. If this was someone in the public eye that I didn't like, I would probably have fallen on the initial side of, oh yeah, could be true. Or, oh yeah, might be true. And then fought against that initial assumption, hopefully. Maybe I'd be less likely to do it on that side. I worry that I would be less likely to do it on that side. And eventually fallen back to my original position, just with a full sense of having really thought about it properly. So I feel like I'm uncomfortable with any conclusion. I'm almost more comfortable with no conclusion, even though I really know inside that's still a conclusion. Because, I have not disengaged from his content. I had really allowed myself to forget that it was a thing.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I guess there is one factor that maybe sways me, which is something that I've been aware of from the moment I went into education as a career, is that knowledge of it would only take an accusation of any kind of impropriety like that to make me unemployable, whether I'd done it or not. And I think, having lived with that anxiety, it is more natural for me to empathise with him. Because I've not been, or particularly imagined myself in the other position. Probably should have, but I haven't. So I guess there is I was going to say an empathy gap, that's not quite true, but there's definitely, his experience is closer to mine, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, these two things of sort of like, the idea of believing victims and also being aware of the consequence of that being cancel culture, and I think that's also a bad thing. It's sort of like there's these two opposing forces that need to be balanced, because I think that, you know, that you have a fear for your career where one accusation is all it takes to end your career. That's a problem in society. I think that's definitely a problem.
And can I just say that that is something that everyone has a reason to be scared of. Whatever sector you are in, whoever you are, you know, in terms of gender, orientation, anything like that, that is something that could happen to anyone. I'm more aware of it, but that is a thing. You know, don't just think that that is a male issue, don't just think that that is an education issue. That isn't me trying to persuade people to be scared about this, I just want to... I don't know why I thought it was important to make that clear.
I think it is important to make clear that this is something that at its extreme, for sure, and probably today can affect anyone in any career, that you can lose whatever job you have. I mean, it happens in software development. I'm aware of people losing their jobs because of an accusation, and these, you know, online witch hunts and stuff that end to people losing their jobs because you know, no company can take that much bad press about a topic like this. So, and
it doesn't have to be an accusation of this nature either, really.
No, it can be anything. You know, people can lose their jobs over all kinds of stuff, like a picture of them holding a alcoholic drink when they were 17 or something. Like, it's just, you know, yeah, this is definitely a thing, and there's lots of other things related to it, like how long stuff lasts on the internet. You can't hide from your history and all that kind of stuff. There's all this stuff that mingles together to be a problem at one end of this. And yeah, you've got to balance all these things together. I think that's the thing. There isn't, like, you can't just take an absolute stance. You can't be like, I will always believe the accuser, and you equally can't be like, I will always take the side of the accused, because you know, both those extremes lead to problems. You know, only a Sith deals in absolutes. You know.
And then, of course, if we're playing the empathy game, it's easy to imagine yourself in either position, and you want to be believed. Because you are you, and you know if you're right or not. At least you hope you know.
Yeah, yeah. I think the fundamental thing with this is this, like, I've got a selfish desire to either ignore the problem or come out in favour of one party, and I've got a more, I don't know, cerebral morality compulsion to go the other way. And it's just a tricky thing to balance.
I guess if there's a generalisable point to take away from this, is there a generalisable point to take away from this? One that isn't going to sound defensive, at least.
I have one other generalisation that I would just quickly like to sort of point out that was pointed out to me. If you take the people out of the situation and just describe it in a more detached way, what you have is a woman accusing a man of raping her, the man saying she's crazy, and then society believing the man and not evaluating that. And I think that that situation in itself is a very common situation, and I think that the fact that is kind of a thing should be cause for evaluation. That's sort of like one of the roots of my line of reasoning here, is that is a problem in society, and that's something that I can do something about. That I can evaluate my own thought processes here and apply them in the situations that I see in the world to sort of to deal with that problem in some small way.
I'm super uncomfortable with gendering it that way, even though it is inherently gendered, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so I think that I completely agree. So, like, level 2 of this would be the same statement but not gendered. But I think it's one of those situations where the bigger problem is the gendered version, and it's the gendered version gendered in that way is sort of like the pressing issue of the day. And hopefully, in some decades' time, the bigger problem will be the non-gendered version of that. Hopefully, obviously, it won't be a problem at all. There will be no version of this. That would be the ideal. But yeah.
I guess what I'm uncomfortable with about that, it's not about that statement, it's about that statement coming up in this context. Because we are taking a generalisation that is true, 100% true, and using it to imply a judgment about an individual scenario, which is risky. And I am so damn aware of the fact that me saying that as a man makes it received completely different. Well, me saying that as a male-presenting person makes that received completely differently, and that's a whole other conversation. That's a whole set of other conversations, but it makes it an emotional argument for me, which, again, it possibly should be. But
this is a really interesting that's another sort of like little sub-journey around sort of seeing this kind of stuff and trying not to take it personally and trying to acknowledge that it is like there's a systemic problem here. And while I may be the benefactor of that systemic thing, it's not a personal attack on me. But that's a really hard thing to wrestle with, for sure. Like, I mean, and part of the way I've tackled that kind of stuff is to just kind of slowly start introducing more of this stuff into my bubble and to fight the urge to respond to it. Both, like, I've never like replied to someone tweeting this kind of stuff, for example. I've always been, I don't want to be one of those, you know, well, actually reply people. I don't want to do that. So I've never sort of engaged in that way publicly, but like I have these arguments in my own head, and I've been slowly trying to sort of like be like, look, take a step back, take yourself out of the situation, try and sort of like look at this as a system, as a systemic thing. But it's a really hard thing to do, and I still, you know, it still makes me defensive talking about this kind of stuff, for sure.
I guess if there's one last thing I want to go into with this, and it might be a dead end, or worse, it might be a very fruitful point of conversation, is what I touched on much earlier, in terms of this being a public discussion. My instinct is that we would all be better off if this were a purely private thing. But I'm also very well aware that that leads to a whole new problem in terms of the visibility of the general discussion. So I would like to live in a world where individual cases like this are not public knowledge, because I don't think there's any justice in the court of public opinion. But as you say, there's also no justice in an actual legal sense in many ways. And I've lost the point I'm making here. I think it's just another statement of frustration from me.
The problem I have with this is that in this specific case, this is a very public figure in this field. This is the thing. Like, if this were us talking publicly about some people that we knew but who weren't public figures, that would be a very different thing. Like, bringing that into the public would be pointless and harmful and damaging, and I don't think we should do that. But we've got a situation where we have a very well-known person who is considered a role model to many, the maker community and all kinds of other sort of like adjacent areas. And I think it's like, I don't want to sort of sit here and drag people's names through the mud. I don't want to be here and be like, Adam is a terrible person, everyone should hate him. That's not what I'm sort of here trying to say. I'm just trying to sort of like share my journey with this. And if anything, my only sort of thing that I would want people to take away from this is just think about the situation, and that's all really. But I think the fact that it is a public figure does change it, and I think it is worth talking about in public as a result of that. And this may very well be just a thing that we disagree on.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. That is fine. That's always been fine. So I'm also very anxious talking about all of this, and maybe this is a sign that my opinions don't lie where they should, or at least they're not ones that I'm comfortable with, but I am very aware of the potential for people to disagree with me. And that's not in terms of I don't want to be disagreed with, but I think, again, this is a point I don't want to make either, but I worry that in these conversations, people tend to assume that your opinions are coming from specific places, such as, you know, gender, whatever. And I think that makes this conversation so much harder in public like we're doing it. In private, easy.
This is the other interesting thing, right? Where, like, you know, what you've expressed is that you want the conclusion to be no conclusion, right? And
which is in itself a conclusion.
Yeah, and so the thing is, right, so that by me having this conversation with you, and by us, if we publish this conversation, by us publishing it, it takes you off the fence in a public way, right? If we've had this conversation in public, and you continue to watch Tested, which you would be entirely within reason to do.
And I should probably say that's probably going to be my conclusion from this.
Yeah. And that in itself is a statement, implied or otherwise, and yeah, so it's sort of like it is interesting having the conversation in public, because it makes it much harder. Well, there's no middle ground anyway, but like you can't hide from the fact there's no middle ground by doing it in public. Well, if nothing else, thank you for having the conversation on record, even if you don't publish it. I appreciate that you were willing to talk about it and have it recorded.
I think that's always been part of this, hasn't it? And even if people don't agree with one of us or both of us, I hope that there is a positive in terms of, I was going to say, having shown that this can be done. I'm not sure that's really the issue here, but yeah, you know what I mean. I guess the thing for me is that this is a snapshot of my opinion now. And we joke about my inconsistency, but there is a very good chance that my opinion, my feelings will develop. Possibly just based on the experience of having had this conversation and listening back to it. I guess I hope my opinion will develop, but I don't necessarily have an opinion on which direction that will be in or should be in. I hope my opinion isn't static.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, like, people are and should be free to change their opinions, and you should change your opinions in light of new information as well. It may be that in a few years there is some definitive proof that this didn't happen, and then I will go back and spend a few weeks watching every single video that happened in the meantime. I don't know. These things are ever changing, and I think people change their opinions, they change their actions, their feelings about things change and develop over time. It might be that there's, I don't know, like, things change. People are not static snapshots forever. People develop and grow and change, and the internet should let them do it.